Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Brainwashed series. We are back again, live, having so much fun in here right from the beginning. Super pumped to have another amazing guest on this show, and just give you a bit of context again. What is this show about? Is helping people to realize how the world is set it up, and we trying to help and helping people to realize how the world can be. All right. So without further ado, I'm super pumped to have another guest in here. So welcome to the show, Matt Boudreaux. What's up,
Beau-
brother?
Beautiful. Good to be here, bud. I appreciate you asking.
Amazing. All right, so let's dive right in and let's start with your journey. How did you get into entrepreneurship? How did how this whole thing started for you? Yeah, since you've
Yeah.
been, young age or so, give us a little bit of more context.
Yeah, entrepreneurship wasn't something that I was exposed to necessarily early on. I had friends who had parents who were entrepreneurs. I had a couple, but I thought, okay, well, that's a unique situation. I didn't grow up in that kind of household, and I didn't think it was necessarily for anybody and everybody kind of thing. So, it started for me because of a need to fill a gap in my own life. So I came out of education, was working at a university in California. I'd gone through college, gone through school, gone through college, had straight A's all through school, straight A's all through college. Came out and realized I still didn't know who I was or what I had to offer the world. I knew how to play school, right? I didn't know how to do anything that was actually of value. But I landed a job at a university, and from there decided, oh, okay, well, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. Maybe I'm supposed to help people through education. And so I got into teaching. I was a public school teacher, and I was a public school administrator. Went into private schools and was doing all that. And I just went, man, this isn't really helping people the way I want to help people either. And my own kids, now my oldest is getting ready to go into school. And I don't really love the way the system is designed to make people obedient. I feel like I got the short end of the stick because I did all the things I was supposed to do. I got good grades and I got good scores on my exams and my standardized tests, and that was supposed to give me like all of this opportunity and free. People weren't throwing job opportunities at me. People weren't throwing six-figure, yeah, contracts at me. I did all the right things and still had to figure a whole bunch of things out. I wanted something different for them. So my first foray into entrepreneurship was, okay, well, then I'm going to start a school that helps prepare people for life, not to do more school.
Mm,
So that's really where entrepreneurship started, is I wanted to do something for my own children. And so I started building out a school of my own, a business of my own, and simultaneously, thankfully, a speaking career took off as well. So I had to figure out two businesses at the same time. I went from never owning and operating a business to now I'm starting a school campus and I'm starting a keynote speaking career. Let's see what happens. And so I did both of those for a very, very long time. Both ended up taking off quite a bit and helping feed into each other. But that's really what it started as, man, is I wanted to solve a problem for myself.
right. So now, okay, let's get even a little bit into the past. Like,
Mhm.
how was your experience of schooling, like for yourself, what you experienced, and like how this, you know, was it the same as it is right these days, or
It's a good question.
I don't know what age you
Yeah.
actually are exactly,
Yeah.
but like
It's a good
tell me about that. Yeah.
it's a good question. So I'm 40, I just turned 46. How old are you, by the way?
I'm
I know this is
29,
I know
brother.
this is your podcast, man, but I'm gonna ask a question too. How old are you?
In 29, yeah, in
29,
29.
right on,
I
man. Good
yeah,
for you.
I jumped into entrepreneurship when I was 21, 22.
Good for you. Very cool.
Right, but it was a big shift. The reason why I jumped into it, it was because we moved. Oh well, I moved by myself to
Mhm.
England first year, like first year after school, after finishing school, and that was my breakout moment because I thought that different country going to bring me different outcome, like different
Mhm.
life.
Got it.
No, not really happened. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, no, very cool. Yeah, it's a good question on school, and that really does pertain a lot to what I do because now I help people start schools too, and I've helped about 150 people launch schools of their own in the last couple of years. So it's very, a very big part of our business and what we do. School, school for me was easy, and it's not because I'm that smart. I saw very early on that there was a game being played. And I didn't know how to describe it at that moment as a young kid, but I remember very clearly sitting in a room going, "Oh, okay, they're grouping us together based on ability in this particular thing. They think our group is really good at reading, okay, and the teacher just wants to hear me say certain things, and then she goes, "Okay, good job." Right? Like I could figure out the game pretty quick. I remember very clearly figuring that out early and just going, cool. Well, this school thing's a piece of cake. And I always felt that way. I knew how to play the game so that I could get the good grades. And I was learning some things along the way, but it wasn't like I was excited about diving in to find things out. Most importantly, I was like, okay, I'll play the game, get my straight A's, and then I'm going to focus on girls, and I'm going to focus on sports, and I'm going to focus on, right, all of these things, which again, not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself. But what happened was, as soon as that game ended, got my straight A's in high school. Like, I guess I'll go to college because that's what everybody does. Got my straight A's in college. Went to grad school. Got my straight A's in grad school. As soon as that game ends, I realized that was all I was really good at was playing that game. And that game is not the same game as life itself. That's the rub for so many people. You get really good at this game and you're told, be good at school, and life works out. And if you're not good at school, oh my God, you're probably going to prison, right? Like it's made to be this like super extreme thing. And none of that is true. It's not inherently preparing you. And that's what I found out very early on. I was like, man, I did all the things I was told I was supposed to do, and I did it well. Why do I not know who I am? Why do I not know what I'm good at, what I have to offer? Why can't I not articulate what I'm actually even interested in outside of still girls and sports? Like, why can't I say I'm interested in something else? Why am I not passionate about pursuing something else? Where is this? I was supposed to get this from doing all the right things. I was supposed to have these amazing job offers now. None of that's real. So what the hell do I do now, right? Like that's where I found myself. School is a little bit different now, and I don't think necessarily even for the better. And I say this knowing a lot of people who still work in schools. I'm a very big supporter of people who work in schools, good people who are teachers and administrators. I very much want to support them, but it's even more narrowly defined now.
Mm-hmm.
It's even more constricted now.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is a focus on specific standardized testing for the most part in these public schools, right? And it's not it's training people to be obedient and apathetic. It's not unlocking based on human development, like who they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's not keeping up with the shifts that are happening in the modern world. And at least in the US, there's more agendas. Depending on where you are in the world, there are more agendas being put into that have nothing to do with being educated. There are all these political agendas that get put in, or sexual agendas that get put in, and things that don't have anything to do with education. So the system is never designed for human development, but it's even more dangerous now if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I had a conversation lately, like with we had a conversation with my girlfriend, um, with his, with her, with her brother, and he is in, I would lie now, third grade in high school or second grade in high school, and
Hmm.
those people, we are living in a world where AI is bigger and bigger, and it's like going crazy, and like they are still teaching those kids how
Yep.
to do a presentation in PowerPoint with like doing some automations that the words are flying there over like around and so on. Like I was like, oh my gosh, what are you learning still? Like
Yeah.
those things was like valid when I've been in a school like 10 or 15 years ago, literally like in my in a yeah, in like seventh grade or so,
Yeah.
and they are still teaching those things in there. Like
Yeah.
why do you have your opinion why is still the same system that was like 50 years ago, for example? Like it seems
Yeah.
like.
Well, I mean, it's designed to stay that way. It's designed to be a system that doesn't really move, doesn't really budge. It's the modern schooling system is really built more for behavior management than anything else.
Mhm.
Um, and so
Where does this come from? Where do you
it's a
think it?
Prussian, it's ultimately was a Prussian system. So Prussia being like modern day Germany, right? It was more of a Prussian system
So
of
what was the
behavior.
purpose behind it at the first time?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. So I always tell people historically,
Hmm.
go back. I like people to take a look at the books written by. There's a gentleman named John Taylor Gatto. He passed away a few years ago, but Gatto. John Taylor Gatto. He does a much better job than I ever will at articulating the history behind it. But essentially, it was something that entrepreneurs brought to at least to America from the Prussian model. The Prussian model, the story of it, the myth is, it was brought about because there were soldiers who were essentially disobeying orders because they were thinking for themselves. And the Prussian government was like, man, what do we do to get people who will obey a little more quickly, a little more easily? Well, gosh, what if we put all this under the guise of educating them early? We take on, the government takes on the education for the families, but we really make sure we have an obedient population so that we can control them and control behavior a little bit more. And so then some American entrepreneurs saw this opportunity during the Industrial Revolution when they wanted to make sure they had a mass amount of workers that were extremely compliant, and so they paid a lot of money to essentially bring the system and tie into politics and get the government to start doing the same thing out here. That's a very high level generalization. There's much more nuance to that. That again, John Taylor Gatto is going to be a better reference point than Matt Boudreaux ever will, as far as that goes. But the system itself it's very easy when you start to dive into human development. It's very easy to see, well, we're not definitely not basing it on human development. We're
Hmm.
definitely not uh, putting in a system that can, from a mass appeal standpoint, adapt and continue to change as the world continues to change. That's very clear to see. That's very easy to see. And so that's what we face is now you have a world of AI and you have and there is not going to be a very easy way to change this big monstrosity of a system that's now got multiple layers of bureaucracy. You're just not going to change that overnight. And so that proves to be a problem. There's
Do
no
you think
no
it's gonna
utility.
change in the future, or you do you expect it to be same?
No, I don't think it'll change from a government standpoint. I don't think it'll change. What is changing it are things like the organization I have, and it's not just us, but it's the organization that I have. There are other organizations that are creating smaller, more agile systems and communities that are educational communities, micro schools and homeschool co-ops, and there's homeschool families, and that you see a big shift towards that, at least in our country. I know a lot of European countries are banning homeschool altogether, which is a dangerous precedent to set. But you see a lot of these organizations that are popping up, and you see more and more people choosing that. That's interesting. If there's enough of a tipping point there, maybe the public schools will have to try to change something else. But I don't see that happening anytime soon, if ever. Systemically, I think it's going to create a big split. It's
Split.
going to be a
Yeah,
big divide. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, it feels like that because when I can, do you know what it seems to me like? It seems to me like that it's like on in a hands of entrepreneurs,
Uh-huh.
literally, to change the world. Like
Yeah.
literally.
Agreed. Yep.
If
Agreed.
we do not do anything about it, it's going to be still in the same spot. And the only what I can see, like how I get into entrepreneurship and all of that, is just because I studied entrepreneurs, because they open my eyes when it comes to what is going on in there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, I like, well, I doubted it right from like from the beginning a bit because like I haven't been um really good at school. Like I didn't like the playing the game of memorizing most of the time, just stuff that doesn't make any sense to memorize, for example. It's not like in most cases. And so the so I've been you know picked by other people like that, bullied and so on, like because I've been different than everybody else in the class. For example, I was always the dreamer, how I'm gonna change like my life, and like how I'm not gonna be the same as my parents, working all the time and so on, being able to be actually with my kids and so on, like and have lots of money and be able to enjoy the life, travel everywhere I want. I don't want to be stuck in the same place all my life to be just paying my debt or something like that, what most people in my age literally does, which is
Mhm.
crazy, which like it's like unbelievable how many people still believe in those lies and so on, right?
Yeah. That's part of what it's for. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
All of everything is possible. Everybody starts out with a different hand. Everybody starts out dealt with a different hand, different opportunities, different strengths, different weaknesses. Everybody starts out with that, but the narrative that every single person should follow the exact same route and that leads to a world where everybody's doing the thing they want to do when they want to do it with who they want to do it with and making plenty of money to take care of the family and do all that. Well, that's provably false. It's easy to see. It's not easy to accept for a lot of people, which is why people follow the status quo. They go along with the same prescription as everybody else because it's easy to go, okay, this is what I'm promised. I can take personal responsibility off the table. Somebody else will take care of me as long as I play their game the right way. And then they release their sovereignty,
Hmm.
and that is that's the status quo. I'm with you. I'm not interested
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that.
What was your biggest driving source for you, like when it comes to starting a business and or changing the way that most people are educated? What was the driving source for you? Like why you doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I saw, people that were older than me who had gone into, playing this game, and I saw people around me that had been working within the same organization for the 20 some odd years, or they had been working in the same field and were talking about how they never really liked it, they never really loved what they did, they didn't have enough time, there was a lot of complaining. I saw that as across the board. I didn't want any of that for myself. I didn't want to live what Thoreau called a life of quiet desperation. I saw that, right? And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
I saw that in literature. I saw that in movies. Um, I saw that as a common theme across all time for humanity, like this tendency to go back into slavery as long as the slavery was known. And I don't say slavery lightly, but I don't say it meaning like you've got a literal slave, but like we imprison ourselves. And I saw that as the kind of the common theme of humanity. I think it's been happening for generations. But I saw it with people around me too, and I just, man, I never had any interest. And then I looked around and realized, okay, well, I designed my own cage too. I'm sitting here doing the same thing. I'm sitting here believing the same lies. I'm sitting here at a job I don't necessarily love, and in a system that I don't love. And man, I don't think I'd rather work way harder and have it be something that I wanted to do. Burnout comes because you're working even a little bit on things that don't matter. You can work really hard on the things you believe in and matter and not get burnt out. I could feel that. I could see that. And then again, once it came down to, well, this is how I'm going to take care of my family or not. Am I going to perpetuate this same cycle of slavery for my own kids? That's where the rubber hit the road for me. And it was like, nah, man, I need to fix myself on this and get myself out of this so that they have a chance never to get into this in the first place.
Yeah, yeah. Have you learned like, you know, during the school time or anything, like when you've been starting out during that time, have you been studying something about money or like
Mm.
anything about that type of topic, or like when did you get into those stuff actually to, to be financially literate and know
Yeah.
that you can, take care of your finances and, grow your wealth and so on?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'd never had been really given much of an education on financial literacy. My parents weren't, they were both W-2 employees. They just worked for somebody and you get what you get and you hope for a raise after a while and you complain that money doesn't grow on trees and like so I
Money.
didn't really have much of an example. I knew some people that made a lot of money, but I didn't really get them. Like, okay, well, they seem like they own a business, and so that seems like it helps, but I don't really understand how it helps. These guys own real estate. That's cool. I'm not super interested in that, but maybe it's the business side. I don't. But I really had to start the business before it was like, okay, well, now I'm making enough money. And by the way, just because I started a business doesn't mean you automatically make a lot of money. There's a whole lot of work before you start making money on anything. But once I did, then it was like, okay, well, now what do I do with that? I don't want to fall into the trap of just spending it and assuming that that's going to stick around forever. And so it really wasn't until, gosh, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, I had a gentleman that started talking to me about um, how he had owned his business and he privately owned his business, and how he was also very meticulous about taking care of how that money flowed. And he was really the first one for me that showed me, okay, there are systems in place where your money can flow through various trusts. Your money can be used for various things and not get overly taxed by the government. And you can also keep yourself um, in a position of being able to control a lot of things, but also not necessarily show a ton of income. You can set up different businesses and trusts, and there's this entire system, that most people never even are aware is available to them because most people won't ever start a business. You have to start a business in order for some of this stuff to apply. And so he really kind of opened my eyes to that. I remember sitting in his office as he kind of mapped this out, and my eyes were kind of like, I'm like, well, I'm not even sure what you're talking about. Um, and then a few years later, I was in a position where I was like, okay, I see a little bit more about what he's talking about. And then I met with somebody who is now a friend of mine, who is now really kind of a financial advisor for me, who really laid out the system in simple terms for me. And that's really when I started to become more financially literate, was when I started playing that game. I moved everything over to start playing that game and start operating from that game. Just like anything else, you learn it best when you're doing it. And so, I've been about 4 years now where I operate in a little bit of a different system, tax system, and than most people operate in. That's where the financial literacy has come in.
Yeah, yeah, very, very cool. Do you own real estate overall?
Yeah.
Or you
Well,
don't?
I mean, so that's the beauty of it is, yes, I control real estate, but I don't necessarily own it, but I own various trusts
Yep,
that
yep,
own the real estate.
100%. Yeah, yeah, very cool.
Right? And so Matt, I own nothing. I own nothing. But I have trusts that own things. I don't own my business. I don't own our farm. I don't own, our investment properties. I don't own any of it. My trusts that I control owns all of that.
That's it. That's really powerful. Yeah, yeah, I love it.
Different
Because
game.
people, people don't get it. People think like to get more money, they have to go and invest them into like stocks, bonds, and these type of things where they don't have any literally like control over it.
Mhm.
That's what the financial advisor is giving you to, or when you go, yeah, like this is I wouldn't like I started this way because I've been like I'm really like all the time studying, figuring out new things. I love studying, and that's what never
Yeah,
school never taught me. Literally, like I hate it. I hate studying
yeah,
because like most people literally in my opinion die in 24, 25 years old because they stop studying. And
yep.
like
Stop growing.
in your opinion, what is the most important one asset to invest in your
Oh,
life?
far and away, it's yourself. Far. I mean, I know that's not necessarily what you're asking, but far and away, the biggest asset to pour into is your own mentality.
That's what I've been asking for, literally.
That's exactly what it is. That's
Yeah,
only it. If you are not willing to continuously grow, by grow I mean being willing to study, to dive in, to potentially change your mind, and to quite literally step into a new version of yourself. If you're not willing to do that, you're gonna be in trouble. It's quite literally the thing. You teach yourself to continuously step into a new version of yourself that requires a new skill set, that requires you to ask different sets of questions. That is always and forever going to be the number one asset you have is your willingness to do that. It doesn't matter. You can have all the information. Hey, by the way, if you've got a if you got a cell phone, you've got access to all information for all time. So then why aren't you wildly successful? Everybody has that. Everybody has access to it. You peep there. I know a lot of people that listen to podcasts all day long. They might even read a bunch of books, and they might even. But if you aren't willing to change your assumption of who you are and how you operate, and take any of these pieces of knowledge that you acquire and actually transform that into a skill set, it doesn't matter. You can pretend all you want.
100%, 100%. Like studying is one of the most important things when it comes to self-development, personal development, all of that. And it's really sad to see people that you care about, they don't get it, and they literally like, in my opinion, if you keep working with your brain, keep working like keep growing yourself and so on. In my opinion, you're gonna even live longer
Oh yeah. Yep. You got to be
because I
after.
can see, I don't know about you, but I can see people who are, for example, like my grandparents and so on. They just retired, just sitting, don't do really much anything, just watching TV and letting the platforms brainwash their belief system even more. And it's like they don't understand anything. They don't want to understand anything. They're just like they're just waiting to die pretty much, and that's sad,
Yeah.
to see.
Yep, you die faster. I mean, 100%. If you've got something that you're continuously working on, continuously going after, continuously building, continuously learning, it's a fountain of youth. I mean, it really is. I think one of the interesting things, even at my age, I'm not retired. I don't plan on retiring. That version of retirement sounds horrible. I'll never just sit around to do nothing. That sounds awful. That sounds like torture. People's dream of like, I just want to retire and sit on a beach. No, you don't. No, you don't. You want to continue to build and create and serve and lead and pour in, and that's the fountain of youth. Stay moving, keep things going. But even at my age now, I think there's a big. I'm very particular about making sure I get exercise and making sure that I'm very conscientious about the food that I consume and the things that I eat, the things that I don't. I don't ever get sick. I don't ever get sick, and I think part of it is because I take care of my body, but part of it is also because I wake up every day and I'm like, okay, time to go get. I literally don't. I don't have time. I don't have time to sit down and feel bad. So I want to let's keep going. I want to keep building. I want to go keep. I want to help more people. I want to, and I think there's something to that, man.
Hmm.
I really do. It's a fountain of youth. I mean, I know I look ugly and old and I'm very gray,
Bro, you look great. You
but
look
I
great.
feel very good.
Yeah, no, you look great. I'm telling you right now. Yeah, you look really fit and healthy. Like you seems to, yeah, you are good. You are in a good spot, or you know, where you going, I think it's you yeah you're gonna
And you want to feel good, when
inspire.
you're my age, you
Yeah.
want to feel good. I have kids that I want to be able to, I have, at this point, my organization serves thousands of families. I want to be able to show up every morning and work throughout the day, helping as many people as I can. And sometimes that help is physical in nature. Sometimes that help is just being able to pour into them, being able to work through problems with them. There's a mental toll that takes. And I still want to be able to pour into them full energy and pause to be able to go cut down a tree when I got to go cut down a tree on the farm. And then pause and come be with my kids and actually be there with my kids and pour into them. And then pause, go over and have a conversation with my wife and actually listen and pour. I want to be able to show up as a great version of myself in every one of those arenas. If you're exhausted and you hate what you're doing, which is that mental exhaustion that wipes you out, if you're exhausted and you're physically exhausted because of that, you're mentally exhausted, man, that's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I don't want that for anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to words about kids, how do you grow your kids? What do you do to make them like to help them have the
Yeah.
options and be different than
Oh, it's such a good question. So it's one of my favorite questions, one of my favorite topics, man. So, I look at raising children in a couple of different ways. One, I look at it very similar to growing a garden. When you grow a garden, it is not about monitoring each seed that you are planting and talking to the seed and yelling at the seed and saying, you better do this and you better do this. The
Mhm.
seed will grow to be the perfect version of itself if you get everything else around it right. I got to get the
True.
right amount of sun, right? I need a
Yeah,
good amount of
it's
sun.
like
I don't need not too much,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but not too little. The right amount of water, not too much, but not too little. I need to plant it around other plants that aren't going to come in and choke it out,
Mhm.
right? There's plants that work in a symbiotic way. I need to make sure there's no pests that are there, but there are some animals that help fertilize it or what, right? You're trying to get the environment right, and then the seed grows and does what it's supposed to do. That's how I look at raising children. What's the environment look like?
Yeah, yeah.
Which means, what are the things that I do and put around them? What are the things I don't do and
Mm,
don't put around them? Those are the fundamental questions. That starts with me. I'm around them. So, what am I giving them as an example? What is my wife giving them as an example? I better be an example of all the things I want them to be. That's a huge part of it. If I'm saying, you can be anything you want to be, and then they hear me complaining all day long about, I can't do anything right, I can't be anything, I can't do anything, that's what they're going to believe, right? So I need to make sure I'm stepping into my best version of myself. I need to make sure that anybody else we're bringing in from an outside perspective is somebody that I want them to be able to look up to as an example of somebody that's doing something well. I need to be able to have the right conversations around that. I need to make sure my language is setting a standard for them. Right? If I thought one of my kids was not working hard enough on something, if I thought my son wasn't taking care of his chores, I can say, "Hey man, you need to quit being so lazy." I could say that thinking I'm correcting the behavior, but really what I'm doing is I'm telling him he's a lazy person. Or I can say, "Hey man, you know the standard in this house? Like we are people that work hard and hold a high level of excellence in everything we do. That's who you are too, because you're a Boudreaux. So that's who you are too. So you're going to take care of your chores with this high level of excellence because that's who you are." Two very different ways to frame the same thing. One has him walking away with his internal voice now going, "Oh, I'm lazy." The other one walks away with this internal voice going, "I'm a Boudreaux. We hold high standards here."
Nice. That's
Right?
awesome. That's
It's a
powerful. I love
very different
yeah.
mindset.
Yeah.
Very.
Mm,
So all of what we do is focused on that. And then all of what we don't do is also a thing, right? Your plant grows because you give it water and you're supposed to give it water. Your plant will die if you give it, a poison of some sort. Both instances, you're giving it something or you're not giving it something. So
mhm.
for my kids, it's the same thing. I want the right people, the right messages, the right language, but I also want to eliminate the distractions. I want to eliminate people that are sucking from them, people that are not pouring into them, activities that are not. My kids don't eat, garbage food. We make really good, healthy food. There's a lot of great things you can make to make that they don't feel deprived, but we don't do things like fast food. We don't do, because I'm not going to feed them garbage. We don't do things like, and again, I'm not villainizing it. I'm not villainizing any parents if you do this, but video games to me is it's a big distraction for a lot of kids. We don't do video games around here. That's just not something we're going to dive into. My kids are not on social media. They're not going to have the opportunity to just sit and scroll and get involved in all that. It's just not a thing.
Mhm.
We're not going to have that distraction, right? So we're going to give them things to do that help them to continue to grow. And at some point when they're an adult, they're going to choose which way to go. But I want to set, my job right now is to set this foundation for as close to optimal as I can.
Mhm. This is powerful, brother. Yeah, this is really cool. I love it because, like, yeah, so many people, it's easy to shout on somebody, like, just, don't do that, don't do that because you are that and you are so, and telling somebody who the person is through that.
Yeah.
Probably the sound, or you know the saying of, well, it was a saying or it was in the scripture actually, that the only how the person can tell you who you are when the person don't know even who he is himself.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because God's already telling you who you are, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so this is a huge, and I think there are still, most of the people just do exactly what you described before, like,
Sure.
the complete opposite of you teaching your kids.
Sure.
And
And it's how a lot of us were raised too. So I'm not blaming anybody. I get it, right? Like it's a lot of us. That's how we were raised too, and so we just default to what we know and we go. I get it, man. And and look, I'm not a perfect parent. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. There's no such thing as perfect kids. None of that's real. But that's not an excuse not to work to do the right things as
yeah,
consistently as possible. So we got to figure that out. Once you understand that, wait a second, I'm parenting this way because that's what I saw, so that's what I know, it doesn't make it right. But if you think about it, what you're saying is what the parent does matters and it influences how that young person grows up and behaves. So if you know that, then maybe be the best version of yourself right now because they're going to do what you do way before they ever do what you say.
oh yeah, 100%. Holy smoke, yeah, this is really cool. And there are two big topics, like, in your opinion, I want to dive into both of them if we have enough time. But
Mhm.
the first one, you mentioned environment.
Mhm.
How big of a difference makes the correct environment? Like, correct environment, I mean environment that's going to help you to become the best version of yourself, right?
What do you mean, how big?
How like, yeah, how huge determining factor on being successful, like, in your life, plays environment when we talk about, for example,
Yeah.
wealth, health,
Yeah.
anything pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, the environment matters so much. So, Jim Rohn, I think, said a version of this. Stephen Covey in the, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. I mean, he talks about this. There's a number of people that have talked about this, and people will recognize this. But there's this saying of like, you are um, it's like you're the culmination of the five people you spend the most time with, or something like that, right? And that's very, very true. If you are spending time around very positive people, people that are serving, people that are leading, people that are paying attention to their finances, you will become like that. If those are the people you are spending your time with, you will see that as normal. That'll be your standard for normal. Where people need to realize is like, okay, yes, that's true. And you're the product of the five ideas you think about the most. You're the product of the five things you tell yourself about yourself the most. You're the product of the five things you listen to the most, the five books you read the most, the five conversations you have the most. You're the product of all of those things. what it really is saying is, what do you see as normal? You'll tend to do that.
Mm,
So
mhm,
when I'm looking at things for my kids, I'm going, what is normal for them? So let me give you an example that might even be easier for people to make the connection on. So you and I were talking before we started this. You said you grew up in the Czech Republic, right? And then you moved to the UK. In the UK, everybody speaks English. You did not speak English. Why did you not speak English when you moved to the UK? Was it because you were stupid? No. It's because you grew up somewhere where English wasn't normal. That wasn't what people spoke where you were. So then you move somewhere else, and that was normal. English was normal. So you had to figure that normal out, right? My kids speak English. Why? That's all I speak. I speak a little bit of Spanish, enough to get by, but not really. I speak a little bit of that, but we're here. We speak English. That's normal for them. They don't speak Chinese because I don't speak Chinese, right? That's what's normal. So, if exercise is normal in our household, that's what they see as normal. If
totally.
talking about personal growth and trust systems and financial literacy and building a business, if those things are normal, they don't look at the world any different. To them, that's normal. So it was normal for my daughters to make enough money in their business that they owned for them to buy their own horses when they were 9 and 7 years old because it was normal in
Hmm.
our it's you make normal what you make normal.
Yeah.
What does the environment tell you is normal?
Hmm.
If you grow up in an environment that tells you everybody sucks and everything is hard and money's never going to come, then to you that becomes normal, right? So that's the environment. What are you making normal? That's it.
Yeah. 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 This is really cool. I love it because yeah, from literally from this conversation, like from that topic that you shared, I have very clear vision of how I'm going to be raising my kids when the times come.
Awesome. Yeah, man.
Because you know, when it comes to the environment, lots of people, like, you know, they just quote other people and so on.
Sure.
Like there is those wishy-washy type of things that everybody like, or assuming something from some, but you describe it so clearly that uh you know, anybody can literally apply it and start figuring out, because like, yeah, like it's all about, you know, I know that you are a public speaker, so like you know how huge thing, like how huge skill set and more like so important skill set is communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and
Mm.
especially in business, in life, it doesn't matter wherever it is. Like communication is even in the relationship everywhere, pretty much, right?
Very much
And
so.
and the funny thing is that even sales is communication,
Sure. Very
right?
much so. Very much so. And communication doesn't have to be something that's overly complex. And in fact, complexity usually ends up creating an issue. People think good communication often means, well, you've got to be extraordinarily articulate and you have to have to have a very large vocabulary and people can't really get the message all the time when you're speaking in that way. So communication has to go both ways. You need to be able to say something as simply and clearly as possible because ultimately you want the other side to understand what you're saying. And then there's a definition of terms thing too, right? Socrates says the beginning of wisdom is the definition of terms. So
Mm,
if I say, I think all fathers should be good leaders, and Adam goes, yes, I agree with you. Cool. Then I guess we're both on the same page. Unless we both have a different definition of what leadership means. If your idea of leadership is, I got to beat my child into submission, and my idea of leadership is what I just shared previously, then we're not actually agreeing on this, right? So it's getting down to the simplicity of it all and then
mm.
making sure definition of terms are the same. That's where communication happens.
100%. And you know, the whole conversation is like about, about the environment and how you speak to people, is really comes down to learning, studying it. Because if you wouldn't study about how to communicate with your kids to make the environment the most effective, effective way possible, it's all come down to being all life student,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
all the time exercising your brain, studying more, doing things. Of
Right.
course, like doing thing is a huge thing too. Like,
Sure.
you cannot be successful without taking an action, right? Like
Right.
it's not going to just show up on its own like
Right.
some type of miracle, right? I think it's in these days it's even more important to execute on everything
You bet.
that you've learned
You bet.
than the information itself, because like
Right.
we are living in a world where there is not shortage of information, it's lack of execution.
That's exactly what it is. It's lack of execution. And it's the game then, once you understand that it's about the execution, then the game becomes executing on the right things,
Hmm.
right? And so studying in and of itself, like you said, I can study child rearing. I can study what it looks like from a psychological perspective to raise a strong family and raise strong children. I can study that. And then there's the difference between studying it and having the theoretical knowledge and then applying it and actually having kids. That's a whole nother level. And then it turns into, so I studied, figure out what it looks like to raise children. I'm a perfect parent. And then I have children and I go, whoa, okay, not exactly the same, not apples to apples. Okay, now I'm learning through doing. And then I'm going back into that studying phase, but it's different. I'm not studying the academia anymore. Now I'm studying my children and I'm learning who they are and I'm figuring out who they are and I'm getting inside their mind and I'm going, okay, how do they react? I want to be the parent that I want to be able to look at my kids and go, I know what they're thinking right now. And I know how they're going to react to this. And I know what they need. Each one of them needs something a little different. I know how I need to show up for them. I know the obstacle I need to put here to let them overcome it. This obstacle's got to look a little different for him than it does for her, right? I'm studying them now. So that's kind of that cycle. It's paying attention to that. It's always about doing and its application. It's about doing and then thinking through what you just did and then going back and adjusting. That's that continuous cycle. And that maps out to every area of life that matters.
So what do you, in your opinion, when it comes to studying, is it actually the most important cycle of studying happening before or during the execution?
Or after. It depends on what you're talking about, right? So
Mhm.
we have a saying here. So there's a common saying that's ready, aim, fire, right? So like
Mhm.
get ready, then you aim, then you fire. I think it's opposite. You have an idea of what you're shooting for,
Mhm.
freaking so you shoot. Like go towards the general direction and you shoot, and you see where that lands, and then you go, okay, that landed a little high and to the right, so I'm going to move it down a little bit. You shoot, okay, now I'm a little low to the left. All right, great. And now I'm going to shoot again, right? So fire, aim, ready. I think that's how it works with most things. So, most things you have a little bit of a knowledge of what you want to do. Then you go take action on it. You see what the outcome is, and then you reflect on that outcome and make any pivots necessary. So, all of them are important. But if I had to pick one, I would say it's actually the willingness to now change direction. It's actually the reflection on the backside over everything. You got a background knowledge, you have an idea of what you want to start with. So that matters. Taking action matters even more because now you're actually putting it in real time. I think the most important part is then reflecting after the action so that you know how to do it again. And then you figure it out from there. And then the cycle repeats itself.
Yeah, this is really powerful. And there now maybe going to be some people also like when we're talking about this whole thing, like how to, to the environment and all of that, and even exactly what you just share right now with with the ready fire aim basically. Um, there are going to be people who are going to be like, but I have blamed something else or somebody else.
Sure.
How important is to take the responsibility over yourself, because we are not having we are not, the power over us is not, we don't have a power over where we grow up, where we live, or whatever, like when we are literally like, small kids or so on, like until we become an adult. How important in your opinion is to take the responsibility from on yourself and do not blame others, because
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter.
Well, it's the only way you're going to find peace. I mean, that's the real thing. You're not going to find peace if you don't accept the fact that you have certain things you can control, and so then you do your best to control those. And then you have other things you'll never control, so you do your best to let go of any expectation around that. I can't control somebody else's decisions. I can't control where I started. I can't control what happens with the government. I can't control what the president does. I can't control what happens with the Fed. I can't control any of that. So I'm not going to waste my time putting any emotional energy towards those things. I can pay attention if I think I need to pay attention to something and try to look at some patterns and try to see, okay, what do I want to do to help my family? Assuming this might, I can do that, but I'm not going to waste emotional energy worrying about it or complaining about it. If it is something that you can fix, then it's not worth complaining because you should just go try to fix it. If it's something you can't fix, then it's not worth complaining because you can't fix it. So either way, it's never worth complaining. Do something or don't. And that's how you're going to get peace. It's ultimately always, we have 11 rules in our house that are on the wall. And one of those is you are personally responsible. That's exactly what it means. And actually, one of them is no complaining, fix it. That's another one of those rules. So you're personally responsible. You are responsible for what you can be responsible for. And ultimately, what you can always be responsible for is what goes on in between the 6 inches here to here. How do I take something? If all of a sudden Adam just goes off on a rant and says, you know what, you gray bearded piece of and all right, like if he just decided he wanted to do that, I can get really mad, I can get really upset, or I can be like, okay, I guess we're done. Right? Like it doesn't have, and I don't have to think about it ever again. Like it doesn't have to impact me. A lot of people would let that ruin their day, or let people on social media that they don't know make a comment, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, why? Why?
Yeah. Oh
Why
man.
on earth does
Uh,
that get to take up any sort of like real estate on that? And that's a little thing, but you can really extrapolate. I can go back and point to where my parents made mistakes and say, okay, what good does that do? I learned something from that, maybe what I want to do, maybe what I don't want to do. I don't have to hold that against them. I don't have to hold that. That's a waste. You're getting in your own way. You get to decide what things mean. Things are exactly as important as you decide they are.
Super powerful. Thank you, brother. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Before we wrap up, what do you do? How do you help people? Where people can find you? Where is your vision towards? Just give us something real quick. What? I don't know
Yeah.
how much time you have. If you have more time, we can continue for a bit. But yeah.
No, thanks, man. I appreciate that. And I should jump. So I'm going to take my kids to in about 15 minutes. We take off for gymnastics for one of my kids, and my son has wrestling and mixed martial arts practice. So I'm going to take them out there. But everything we do is around building strong families, man. So I've own an organization that does multiple things all around building strong humans and strong families. So we've got men and women in our mentorship program that we help bring through projects and challenges every single month so they can continue to grow, continue to ask questions. We bring in the best mentors on the planet every month with them. I mean, we've had everybody from, I don't know who your audience listens to, but Alex Hormozy and Andy Frizella, my friend Brian Callen just came in. I mean, we can actors, professional athletes, CEOs, entrepreneurs, politicians. Tulsi Gabbard has come in. we've had so many people come in. So we help mentor men and women to move themselves forward. We have mentorship programs for teenagers. We also help people launch full family education centers in their town. So again, we've launched about 150 in these last 2 years, all over the world, predominantly in the US, but Canada, Australia, we've gone outside. So we've got some interest in the UK. Um, so we'll help families do that. Again, build a full family education center that also they can use to support themselves and support their family and dive into entrepreneurship. So we show them how to do that. And I still speak to organizations, all over the world on putting sovereign systems in place in the workplace too, so that
Mhm.
people aren't micromanaging and they're also not devolving into chaos, because management takes ownership of themselves and learns how to become a sovereign leader, and they learn how to empower other people, which means making them sovereign leaders too, so that it's not chaos, but it's also not micromanagement. So everything we do is around this concept of sovereignty and personal responsibility, and
Mhm.
showing people how that actually simply works.
That's awesome. All
Yeah,
right.
man.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And yeah, this was amazing interview. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
But
Ladies and gentlemen, this was Matt Boudreaux. Boudreaux.
yeah,
Hopefully I said it right.
I don't
Hopefully.
know how to say it, man. Close.
Yeah. So
Yep.
thank you so much, brother. Thank you for being here. It was a pleasure to have you. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.